Okay, so welcome everyone. This is week 6 for course 1, and thanks for joining. My name is Joy Gutierrez, and I have been working with Ethan. I'm also a part of New York Shambhala Center. And I thought that today we could just review some of the main themes having to do with karma and the 12 nidanas. So I guess the overview would be we'll do a little bit of sitting practice together, maybe like 10 minutes. And then following that, I'll do a kind of re-review of the main themes of karma and the 12 nidanas. And then after that, I thought we could do a guided meditation of the 12 nidanas. And I thought that would be a good way to kind of absorb the teachings, because I think it's pretty complex. So we could just sort of take our time and go through each of the 12. And then following that, we could have some question and discussion. Okay. So I press record, and let's begin with a little sitting practice. So if everyone wants to take a comfortable seat, whether you're on a chair or on a cushion, just feel your sips bones on your seat. You want to turn away from the screen, that's fine. And take this moment to check in with the quality of your mind, or how you're feeling right now in this moment. And as we take our seat, you can place your hands on your lap or however is comfortable. We can have our spine in an upright position, but not too tight. Strong back, soft front. And the jaw is relaxed. And if you like to keep your eyes open, I invite you to have a soft gaze about 6 to 8 feet in front of you. And just begin by taking a few easeful breaths. Connecting with your seat and your body. Now gently we can begin to find our breath and let that be the focus of our meditation. So after I ring the bell, we can sit and practice shamatha for the next 10 minutes. So as we come to a close for this practice, we can slowly come back to the room, and we can just notice with some awareness, how was the quality of my mind? And just make a note of it. And perhaps set an intention for your next sitting practice about what you might notice or what you might try and cultivate. Thank you. Maybe we can start with a bow or Anjali. Hi, everyone. So I guess I just wanted to momentarily check in how the teachings of karma and the 12 nidanas are landing with everyone. If you wanted to unmute yourself or chat in a word or two. I think it's a pretty complex topic, personally. Yes, it was yes, absolutely. It is. Yeah, I think it's because it sort of like just addresses, our human stuckness. And sometimes I think it's just difficult to stay with that. But I think the idea of gentleness, of approaching this all with gentleness is pretty key. And we'll talk about that some more. So karma, as described in Ethan's book and in our previous talks, is the habitual conditioning as humans which leads us to action or reaction, right? So there's this cause and effect relationship. And that it evolves into a chain sort of reaction, hence the name 12 nidanas. Nidana means literally link. And so there's a chain of causation. We are experiencing this cyclical links of experiences, sensations, which leads us to act or react, right? And yeah, and it's not easy. It's not easy staying through these cycles. I mean, I think we can we can definitely acknowledge that. So just to briefly recap the 12 nidanas. I'm not going to put the diagram up on the screen, but if you wanted to follow along later when we do the guided practice, it is on page 55 of On the Road Home. So it's basically divided into 3 categories. We have the past, the present, and the future. The past is allows us to understand how this preconditioning affects our mind and how we experience ourselves now. The present is how, literally, how we are experiencing that in the mind and the body and in our consciousness. And then we'll talk about the gap during the practice. But you could think about the present as minding the gap. And then the future is where we begin to plant the seeds of karma, and also can perhaps set an intention. Things are not set in stone, and moment by moment we can affect the outcome of the future. So I think at least for me, the importance in working with karma is how our mindfulness practice could allow us some sort of slowing down, where we can have this level of awareness and we can feel, we can recognize our reactions as they arise. And I think if we can slow down a little bit, we can really begin to have some sort of curiosity about the way we act and react. And it's not that we're gonna, change overnight, but I think if we can do some incremental noticing or awareness, we can maybe begin to shift the way we play things out. So let's jump into the guided practice. I was thinking that in doing this practice, we can sort of like elongate our experience of the 12 nidanas, whereas maybe in real life it happens, pretty quickly in real time. But, according to Einstein, time is relative. So maybe with our practice, we can, sort of slow things down and just have a little more spaciousness around how we're feeling and how we're thinking and how it's all landing before we actually do things. Okay. So I invite you again to take a comfortable position on your chair or on your cushion, and I'm just going to guide us through the 12 nidanas. And, maybe this is a way we can sort of really absorb the teaching or feel it as embodied. And I think what we can do is, as Ethan said, choose a light to medium situation. Maybe it was something you experienced this week, or a karmic situation that you have been reflecting on since Tuesday. Maybe there was something that happened this week that, maybe you're not entirely proud of and you just want to reflect on it. Or maybe there's something you would like to do a little bit differently if that situation arises again in the future. And so I'm not going to say don't, but it's better to try something in the light to medium range rather than something that has like a heavy karmic feeling for you. And I believe Ethan's example was how you use your smartphone or how you perceive the archetypical bully in your life. So just bring that to mind, and then we'll begin. And we'll start with the bell. So take a few easeful breaths and bring to mind your karmic situation. And the first nidana is known as misperception or avidya. And the teaching is that each of us as sentient beings have this fundamental unawareness. So we begin with this misconception. And because it's fundamental, that means the situation is entirely workable. You can have an attitude of forgiveness and gentleness, and recognizing this unawareness. And this misconception can lead to number 2, which is habit formation. So we begin to develop habits. And basically, these are our coping strategies. We come up with these ways to deal with a situation. We grasp, we reject, or we desensitize, otherwise known as the 3 root poisons: passion, aggression, ignorance. So in your own situation, just think about how that forms in your mind? What are you leaning towards in this situation? And so these first two nidanas having to do with the past now begins to inform the next three steps. The third is our present moment consciousness. How are we experiencing this in our mind? How does this situation become embedded in number four, our present mind and body? And number five, our present sense perceptions. These three steps sort of happen almost simultaneously. And it's about how our mind and body are primed to perceive based on past experiences. So maybe notice how it's landing in your body, or what does it feel like in your mind? These three steps are now what are beginning to set up our experience of feeling, how we're feeling in the moment. And so now we're getting into the zone of resting in the gap. And it can happen anywhere in these next few steps. So number 6 is our contact with experience through our sense faculties. How does your body feel? You're feeling tight in the chest? Does it have a temperature, this sensation? Hot, cold? Is it confusing? Is it filled with angst, or is it filled with excitement? And number 7 is our feeling in response, emotional reaction. As you recall, there's essentially 3 ways to experience that: pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So notice how that feels for you in this situation. And perhaps it's a mix. Number 8 We are craving a reaction. Trishna. We're moving toward a response to what we are experiencing. We might well be within the gap. So the gap is a space of awareness. And as Ethan describes, this is not a bliss space. There tends to be a lot of momentum, a lot of energy, and a lot of discomfort. There can be. Make room for this discomfort. Touch into your vulnerability and realize that it requires some courage to be in this space and some trust. We are resting in the gap. Number 9, choosing a reaction. Upadana. We might use our old strategies, our old coping mechanisms. We might have slowed down and noticed with some awareness that that was what was happening. And we might still do the same thing. Or we might meet that moment with courage and make a new choice. This is the space between feeling and reacting. Do we take 3 breaths? Do we do on the spot loving kindness meditation towards ourselves? Just allow for that spaciousness. And step 10, planting future seeds. So whatever action or reaction we choose, and that might even be non-action, that is an action in itself. We are planting the future seeds of karma. And then we move into the future. Step 11, the world's response. We will also experience some feedback as a result of our action. Can we be open to that? And step 12, future impermanence. So nothing is fixed. No future situation is fixed. We enter these cycles of nidana continually. So there's always another present moment. To decide how we act or react. So maybe we can just take a moment to come back to the room, take a few easeful breaths. This was a really uncomfortable situation or visualization. Just come back to the body and breathing. Maybe take a deeper breath. How's everyone? Um, I'm curious to hear how that was for you or what that brought up. Yeah, it's powerful. Yes. Connie's saying, I feel like I need to study each step another 8 weeks. I agree. Um, yeah, it's it's hard work. Um, but I love the notion of approaching it with gentleness and forgiveness and just sort of slowing down, um, perhaps in the relative sense. I think in real life, sometimes things are happening like, quickly. Um, I think giving ourselves room to stay with discomfort, um, I think is pretty key. And for me, my mindfulness practice is what sort of helps me the most. Even if in that moment I'm acknowledging, like, oh, this is really difficult. Um, just that sort of slowing down. And it's almost like, you're just sort of looking around internally, to say, hey, what's going on? Yeah, just going to read some of these these comments. Reinforce the practical application of this meditation. Realized noticing arrival of feeling for me is key. Thank you, Julie. And Hilder, I worked with something I haven't done for a long time and felt strong resistance. Yeah, that happens a lot to me as well, especially during practice. I think there are times when, I'm sort of like my cushion and my sitting practice is waiting, and I'm sort of like, like a little bit of dread. But I think, just allowing yourself the time to sit with all of this is perhaps the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself. And I think with the 12 nidanas as well, we can remember that it could be something that you're experiencing in the moment, but as Ethan has also described, it's a means of reflection or setting future intentions, right? These are habitual reactions, like the things that we notice, we just keep doing them over and over. And it's, for each of ourselves personally, it's probably the most frustrating. So I like the idea of being able to think back on something and maybe like reframing it with the 12 nidanas, or about how I might be present and aware the next time it comes around. Allowing and pausing resonate with me. We fly on autopilot with the small stuff, and those small moments accumulate to, over time, a strong suit of armor, which builds. And I didn't even see it coming. Yeah, thank you, Matthew. Yeah, it's our impulsive reaction sometimes. I think sometimes, we even have like, our reptilian brain kicks in. Like if you're driving, it's, you're very much in that animal brain mode, and it's, yeah, the impulsivity it can be quite strong. And so, can you count from 10 to 1 backwards and get back to your rational brain? Can you come back to, just some sort of awareness, some sort of like, you have a heart center. So I just wanted to open up. We have maybe like 10 minutes left. If people wanted to share their experience in the past few days about their take on these teachings, has it been easy to apply? Has it been a mixed bag? Has it been, sometimes it can be a little tricky for denser situations. Rain says, reflection after the experience helps me identify where the gap is so I can be planning where the pause should be next time. Yes. Yeah, that's super helpful. can we arrive in any given moment and be able to know that there's some sort of slow down button, or yeah, how do we press pause?
Can I share something?
Yes, please.
Great. So I've been trying to apply this all week, and I feel as though at times I'm becoming overwhelmed because I'm seeing the tremendous amount of habitual conditioning over and over. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, more, 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 more. Sometimes it's liberating because I can begin to work on it, and then other times I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like a black hole. I'm going down into this awareness of the depth of my habitual conditioning.
Thank you, Wendy. Yeah. Sometimes it feels like it kind of sucks. Like, oh, I am a human. Yeah, it might seem overwhelming. So I think the thing that helps me is, that the first step, the misperception, that is almost, like that's fundamental to all of us. I think the deeper teachings call it that we, like that's the beginning of dualism. Chogyam calls it the moment of I before I am. And I think because there's no avoiding it, it's almost like then we can be, like maybe that situation is workable, that we can be gentle towards ourselves. But yeah, I agree. Like at the same time, it's sort of, it's like liberating and challenging to realize how conditioned we are. So I think if we can take these in incremental bite-sized pieces to maybe not super intense situations, that might be helpful. But yeah, sometimes you can't not know anymore with the teachings. And so now you begin to notice. So there will be, yeah, that is the practice. There will be additional practices as we continue in the course, or course 2, 3, about how we can work with all of this. Michael says, I've noticed that I assume that I need to resolve all discomfort. It's hard to just sit and let things be without grasping for a solution. Mm-hmm. And start the cycle over again. Yes, welcome to karma, right? Yeah, it's incredible how sometimes that you are slowing down and you are noticing it, but it's just like it's so strong, and sometimes you do repeat the same thing. Tend to have an intention of keeping an awareness of my patterns at the beginning of the day, then I lose awareness of it by the end of the day. Yeah, well, you just bodily get tired as the day wears on, right? And so I think sometimes, I think it's great that you even set this intention at the beginning of your day, because then at least you have some sort of fighting chance. But I think it's okay to, you know, some days you might need to give yourself a break. And sometimes it will just be unavoidable as life is. Um, Hilder, I like reminding myself to approach myself with gentleness. Many of my bad habits came straight from my parents, passed down generation after generation and reinforced. Absolutely. And that, um, really goes to the heart of like each of our relative truths, right? We all have our own families of origin, um, our own social conditioning, based on so many factors. And that's, the readings in Radical Dharma, speak to that notion as well about um, racial identity or sexuality, um, your class, your social status, where did you go to school, and, what did your parents practice as a religion in your early youth. So all of those sort of come together to shape your experience of now. Um, Ethan's insight that we can't change how we are feeling in the present moment is liberating. Yeah, I agree. It's sort of like, um, yeah, just meeting yourself where you are in the moment rather than saying, I wish I felt another way, um, is pretty, yeah, that's pretty profound. Um, because if our practice is about making friends with ourselves, that includes the times when we're feeling pretty badly. Um, uh, there are some teachings by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche where he, calls like the tendency of Westerners to feel self-hatred. And, um, you know, I think sometimes, yeah, we've been sort of primed or conditioned to feel that way. And maybe we acknowledge that. Maybe we acknowledge the good feelings as well, and just be with it. I think that's very important. Just being honest with our present experience, whether it's positive or negative, or um, discriminating awareness, learning to know what kind of discomfort needs changing and what needs to go on its own. Transgenerational trauma has been hard for me to acknowledge in myself. Slowing down and tolerating the discomfort of what I see or what I feel has been a challenge. Self-compassion has been an important skill to develop. Yeah. Uh, yeah, that reminds me of the teaching about how, our experience and ourself, they're not separate, right? And so how do we meet that with self-compassion and skill? yeah, there's a lot of discomfort and there's a lot of vulnerability in all of this, right? Um, I don't think the world we live in is like makes that easy. You know, it's just go, go, go. Um, so we have a few minutes. Does anyone have anything else to share or to add? I really want to thank everyone for your practice today. Um, you know, I know some of us aren't used to the Zoom format, but you know, I see you, and it's good to spend this time practicing together. Practicing together is always a gift. Um, yes, stay with the breath. No matter what, stay with the breath. Um, so maybe we can close with a bow. Thank you so much. I hope the format that I recorded is not too distracting. I tried to honor the request of just having one image. So let's see if it worked. But thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Joy. How do I get up?